So the Bible came in with someone who used it badly. That's fine. If you reject it for that, that's your choice. It's a democracy.
Yeah, but
it's a free country.
you
But
see,
those who understand it and it works for them will take it and use it. And my teaching is, look at it. Look at the entity. Evaluate the entity. Not the person who was carrying it and how they used it. No. Evaluate the entity. Use your brain to evaluate the entity for what it is on its merit.
But it's not as simple as you are saying.
That's a different,
because to
that's
evaluate,
a different story. That's why we teach.
You see, because
I know it's not simple. That's why we teach.
To come to the point of putting things between
I agree.
finger and the thumb and scrutinizing.
I agree.
You have to,
I agree it's not easy,
to come to
but
a
to be
certain
dismissive.
level
Yes.
of thought.
Absolutely.
Because at the moment,
Absolutely.
we have the proliferation of Pentecostal churches, for example,
I know.
in this country,
I know.
where deliverance is based on material things, contrary to the notion of the Almighty. People are amassing wealth at the expense of very poor people. You understand?
Yes.
The spiritual highway program that we are in seeks to buoy such type of doing,
I know.
much to the advantage of the populace of this country. When they are going for a church, they should know that they are visiting the spiritual world and not aiming for material deliverance. We had our people during the liberation struggle of this country having to bow down to our spirit mediums for purposes of sailing through the war. But eventually, when the war was over, we now discover that they have been put aside, and people are now following the Bible in terms of the Christ world. What's your perception?
My perception is that there's nothing wrong with the Bible. Absolutely nothing wrong with the Bible. That's number one. Number two, as I said, there are 4 classes of people. There are people who are not religious and not spiritual. There are people who are religious and spiritual. There are people who are religious and not spiritual. There are people who are spiritual and not religious. Now, just because you are religious and spiritual, or in the case where you believe in spirit, but you don't go to church, which means you are the type that is spiritual but not religious, just because you fit into any of those boxes doesn't make you either good or bad. There are people who don't go to church, don't believe in spirituality, but are good people. They do not murder, they do not rape, they do not commit armed robberies. They live their lives in terms of certain principles. They derive those principles. There is a conscience that tells them there is something good about being good. But there are still the same people who are not religious and not spiritual and are serial rapists, serial murderers, and serial robbers. On the other hand, there are people who are religious and spiritual, go to church every day, not even every Sunday or every Sabbath, but every single day. Have high positions in church, do all this, but they're evil. They still commit those evil things. And then there are people who do the same, go to church, and are spiritual and religious, and are also good. So we should not have a simplistic view of, do you believe in this? You must believe in this. Checklist, checklist, checklist. The issue is, everyone is on a search. Everyone is on a search. I personally searched, after my father passed away, for 5 years before I became a Christian. And in that time, I read New Age. I read the Catechism of the Catholic Church, the Missal. I read the Quran. I lived with Buddhists. I went to Buddhist priests. When I was in Sri Lanka, I went to a town called Kandy, 500 kilometers from Colombo, to the temple of the tooth of the Buddha. I searched for 5 years, and then I became an Adventist.
But
for
can
me, that's not an
can
issue.
you shed light on why people choose to remain secretive, aligned to a specific sect, or in terms of, believing in God?
I've just said to you, I've just explained to you that that is actually not true.
What makes a Muslim remain within the Quran environment?
Because people, inherently, people naturally, it is in the DNA of individuals to stay aligned with what works for them. It is in the DNA of every individual to stay within their comfort zone. If all is provided for, if everything is there, if I don't suffer in this environment, I have hardly any need to step out. That's why in English they say necessity is the mother of invention. I'm not going to even think about anything else. If all the food is provided for, I have companionship, I have material, everything, I have everything that I'm provided for, I won't go outside. So if I am in an environment where so far it has worked for me, whether it's Christianity or the Islamic faith or whatever, if it has worked for me, even when someone is coming from outside and trying to tell me, live Christianity and go to the Islamic faith, I told you earlier in this program that most people search when they are faced with personal tragedy.
So you advise
People don't actually go out unless they start becoming uncomfortable, unless they start becoming apprehensive, unless they start becoming nervous about something.
What is your real advice to the world? Are you saying everyone should stay where he is?
Oh, no. No, I'm saying that
What he is believing in, he must remain within the realm of what he believes.
oh no, I'm not saying that.
What should the world do then?
I think the world should search. People should search. People should come out of the comfort zone. I was explaining to you that the natural tendency, it is in the DNA of an individual to stay within comfort zone. But my advice is don't stay within comfort zone, because you're only going to start searching when you're faced with a personal catastrophe. Isn't that what I said? If you just stay within there, you're eventually going to be faced with a personal catastrophe, and then you'll be forced to search.
But
To avoid that, I'm answering your question. But to avoid that, my advice to you is search even when you're in a comfort zone. Start to search. Find out what these religions are. Knowledge is what is going to empower you. Search. Find out what the Quran teaches. Find out what Buddhism teaches. Find out what Christianity teaches. I don't want to preempt anything, but I can guarantee you that if you go that route, sooner or later you will find what is actually the true religion for you.
Fine. The issue of the disappearance of people in this country, in mountains, elsewhere. People make a tour, for example, in Nyanga and other places. When they get there, they are given rules and regulations, what to do and not to do. We have had a very bad situation in this country, Zimbabwe, where a lot of people are getting lost amongst or within mountains forever. Recently we have got a situation where one Muslim got lost in the Inyangani mountains, and of late there was the minister Chande Masaya who lost 2 of his kids in the Nyanga mountains. Long ago another plane again also plunged in that mountain. If we all, in all sects, whether Christianity, Buddhism or whatever, why is it that those people disappear forever? Where are they? Where have they gone to? There is no place where they have been seen, eaten by even their bones or anything.
I don't know. I'm not pretending to have all the answers.
Spiritually, what's happening?
Okay.
Maybe you can shed light.
Okay. I think there's a number of things that we need to understand. Part of spirituality is about not pretending to have all the answers. And that's why I'm talking about searching. Maybe you're missing my point. I'm not pretending to have all the answers. But no one is going to convince me and say, you know what, let's leave this place and let's go and do some ritual there where we burn this and slaughter this and sacrifice so and so. No, I'm not going to delve into stuff that, according to my knowledge now, I believe is evil, or I believe is not right, or I believe is not in line with my understanding of the light. And when I say light, it's because even the Bible says you must be the light. You must be the light of the world. You are the light of the world. Okay, so anything that I believe is represented by forces of darkness, I'm not going to go there. And for that, I have no apology. But it doesn't mean that for me to justify my not going there, I have to have answers about why someone disappeared. I don't have to have answers about why someone disappeared. Because not everything is revealed yet. We're not in heaven yet. So not everyone is, but what I know is that I know enough about my personal spirituality and my religion to live my life in a way that will work for me and in a way that is consistent with the clarity of my conscience. That's all that I need to know. So yes, some people disappeared. That's unfortunate. We can institute an investigation. We can have a commission of inquiry. We can do research. We can do anything. That's fine. But you can ask me to intellectualize. I can hypothesize. I can say, my hypothesis, my thinking, my theory is that maybe this happened. It's like the Malaysian MH370, I think it was. That up to now, people don't know how it went. There are so many theories about it. You just have to go into the internet. But I don't believe that I should even lose sleep as to what happened to that. I can think about it. It can be very exciting to think about. But in terms of my spirituality and my religion, which is really about my personal transformation and the transformation of those around me, such that their life goes to a higher level of consciousness, so that they may be able to understand themselves better and understand the different levels of their existence. In other words, the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. If they can have more clarity in terms of that understanding, that for me is mission in line with what I'm
thank you very much for enlightening us on this program. The speciality that you've brought in has not been done by all the viewers that we have been talking to since this program was initiated. The concept that you have given, that there is no specific way to say this one is the most correct one or nearest to God. We are still in a searching world. He has overwhelmingly touched me, and I hope even the viewers have now a different notion on what the spiritual world is.
Did you hear what I actually said? I said that I searched and I found. But I cannot stop someone from their search because before they get to find their truth, they may go through a different search from my search. I searched through all these other religions, and now I am sure where I am is the right religion. And that is my religion. But when I see someone going into a different religion, I cannot say to them, don't go there. Because when I was going to other religions, when I was searching, when I was going to a Buddhist temple, when I was dabbling in New Age, when I was meditating, at that stage, for me, that was what I was supposed to be doing, because that was the highest level of my consciousness at the time.
So you are giving everybody enough time to make their own searches. I
think everyone must search. I think God reveals himself individually to people. Read everything. I can't say to people, read only the Bible. That would be folly. I can't say read only the Bible, but I can't say read everything else but the Bible. If I'm using myself as a template, I would say read everything, including the Bible. And you will see and pray enough that God reveals himself to you, and he will reveal himself to you. I have a methodology that I use. I am an advisor. I'm a coach. I'm a transformational life coach. So I have a model that goes through 5 steps. First, we look at people's mindsets. I believe everyone has a mindset, and everyone has to come to terms with those mindsets that they have. We have positive and negative mindsets, but I think it's important for us to address ourselves to our negative mindset. So we have exercises that help people to address their negative mindsets. The second thing that we look at, we help people define their vision, where they want to be. If they have certain principles that they're already living by, then they must define that vision in line with those principles. If not, that vision is what should help them define their principles. So a vision as to where they want to be, but that vision should never be selfish. In other words, it should not be a vision that addresses itself only to what you want to be, but it must also say how it is going to help the community. Then you must have your mission and your values. That's second step, vision, mission, and values. The third step is your strategic thinking, because we all have a brain in order to think, and thinking is one of the activities that has been most abdicated or ignored. And so we need to think, and we've got some thinking frames where we help people to think strategically in order to arrive at solutions. And this strategic thinking is exercised on 10 areas of your life, and I'm going to say this only once, so please stay with me as I say that. The first one is strategy and plans, which is your personal planning capacity. How good are you at planning? The second one is security and environment, which is your ability to identify and face your personal insecurities. The third one is standards and values, which is about defining your personal standards, not the standards of the world, not the standards of your neighbors or of your peers or of your parents, but your personal standards. For example, what's your personal definition of success? The fourth one is handling cash and material wealth, which is identifying ways in which you can manage your personal finances or your personal material resources more effectively. The fifth one is addictions and habits, which has to do with healthy living and cultivating the right habits and avoiding the wrong addictions. And those addictions come in two classes. The first one is behavioral addictions, like addictions to pornography, addictions to gambling, addictions to soap operas, addictions to the internet, addictions to work. The other class is substance addictions, which are addictions to the things we eat, the things we smoke, the things we inject, the things we sniff, and the things we drink. And so we'll look at that. The next one, the sixth one, is regulation and the law, which challenges our ability to live a life that is in line with lawful living. In other words, to be compliant, to not be rebellious. And the seventh one is people and relationships, which states that your relationships with others are defined not so much by how others behave, but by your self-image. If your self-image is solid, if your self-image is at peace, then you will be able to relate with others without much of a problem. The eighth one is education and career, and it talks about the fact that the area of your maximum effectiveness, your purpose in life, the area of your optimum utility or usefulness has more to do with your natural gifts and talents than it has to do with your acquired education and qualifications. And the ninth one is networks and support groups, which says that you need to live a life that is in balance. So you must have a family life, which is in the case of Africans is the immediate and the extended family. You must have a social life, and you must have a work life. And the last one is spirituality and religion, which I've already talked about, which says that since we have in Zimbabwe currently and in many other African countries, we have a new church coming up every other weekend, it's important for us to take a position with respect to what spirituality and religion means to us. And I believe I'm one such person who's taken a decision. And this is the model that we use to help people.
Psychological, sociological, and philosophical indeed.
He will be raised up, lifted up, highly exalted, raised up, lifted up, highly exalted, raised up, lifted up, highly exalted. Jesus, Jesus, my Lord. He will be raised up, lifted up, highly exalted, raised up, lifted up, highly exalted, raised up, lifted up, highly exalted. Jesus.